Chris and Mads, sisters who love a good story.
The only thing better than experiencing a good story is talking about it.
We're here for the unfiltered, unhinged conversations with fellow story lovers and storytellers.
And the occasional rant or rave about the shit that rips our hearts out and puts us back together again.
The stuff that makes us laugh till we pee our pants.
And the ones that teach us what it is to be human. Welcome to the sisterhood. Welcome to the show, you guys. Today, Kristen and I are going to walk you through, our lives up until this point and how we got into bookish creating, maybe some of the lesser known facts you don't know about us, and just kind of, I don't know, what makes us tick. And I think people just want to know, like, the origins of our relationship, if we've always been this close, what forged our friendship, that kind of thing. So we're going to get into all of that, and we broke it down into hopefully segments and chapters you all will relate to as bookish people. And so we're going to talk about our, childhood, children's area section, and then our YA teen section, yes, and then our new adult section, and then the adult situation that we found ourselves in, and then we'll take you up to the present, to right now.
I think it's going to be a fun ride. I do think it'll be a funny ride. Maybe it's just because we look back and we just have humor about our lives, but starting at the beginning for sure. I mean, there's 6 of us kids with mom and dad, and Maddie is the second born. Eldest sibling's a brother. Then there's Maddie. Then there's me. Then there's our sister Grace. And then we have Ben and Sam, the babies.
The 2 little brothers.
The 2 little brothers who were, 5. Mom and dad took like a 5-year break after Grace. I think they contemplated just having 4, and then they were like, well, what the heck? And it became 6, and it was a big full family. But because of our birth order, I think it really did design kind of how we show up in the world. Maddie is a Scorpio.
Yep. Pretty intense. My older brother is a Leo. He's pretty intense, and I idolized him my entire childhood. I lived in his shadow. I worshiped the ground he walked on, and we were pretty intense. Yeah, both of us.
So intense. And honestly, I saw like mom and dad's feedback from their intensity, mostly just their exhaustion, because they were so much. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I just think like they are probably just, our parents were young when they started having kids, and it's a lot to raise kids who are representing in the world that way. And so when I come into the picture and once I start understanding what's like happening, I'm like, okay, well, mom and dad really don't have any more for me. I'm just going to be light and funny. And I became the comedian. I was raised on the Three Stooges black and white films. And I was like, okay, this shit makes me feel good. It would probably make other people feel good too. So I took on that role very light, very early in life. And even though Maddie was a bossy older sister, let's just call a spade. She was my bossy older sister. I am a follower at heart. I love following people that I admire. And I like adding energy to what they're doing. So even in Maddie as and I content creating now, I think Maddie has a lot of the original ideas, and then I put fuel to that flame. Like I'm a generator, and I want to just pump up the people around me. I don't have very many original ideas. And it was like that from a young age, and I'm okay with it. I think it's a really healthy dynamic. I think we need each other.
I mean, I do think you have a lot of original ideas, though. Like, I think you are more imaginative than I am in some ways. I mean, we're going to talk about your imagining game, but I do see what you're saying. You have always been very supportive, and I've always felt like I had a huge cheerleader in you. Like, if I had an idea or I wanted to do something, I couldn't wait to talk to you about it because I knew you would like get behind it and make it happen. So yeah, that's for sure part of our dynamic from when we were young. So growing up in our house, we were homeschooled, middle class, Midwestern family, pretty conservative, definitely spiritual. Yeah. And our parents, I think, just kind of wanted to shelter us from the world a little bit. I think that's part of why we were homeschooled. And they didn't let us watch like traditional TV. They didn't want us watching like ads and commercials and stuff. But like we had a TV in our home, but most of what we were allowed to watch was like G and PG rated. And it was like old stuff, like Kristen was saying, like the Three Stooges, musicals, BBC, adaptations of classic books, like Jane Austen and stuff. And my parents read aloud to us. And it was, I would say, like what people picture is like a very wholesome upbringing. So in our house, you couldn't watch the movie till you read the book. And I was highly motivated to watch the movie. So I remember being like 12 and The Bourne Identity came out with Matt Damon, and I'd seen the trailer and I was just obsessed, fixated, hyper fixated on seeing this movie. So I found the book on my dad's shelf and started reading it. Now, keep in mind, I'm 12. I come from a sheltered family. And that book is full of adult content, is very adult content, adult language, violence, sex. So I remember getting to this sex scene. Keep in mind, I didn't know that you could have sex in books. I was so sheltered, like no idea that was a thing. So I came to my dad and I was like, Dad, I think there's like an inappropriate scene in the book I'm reading. And he is like, what are you reading? I was like, The Bourne Identity. He's like, why are you reading that book? And I was like, because I knew you wouldn't let me watch the movie until I read the book. So that was when Dad had to like clarify that yes, we had to read the book before we saw the movie, but we were not allowed to just like read any book we could get our hands on. But he did let me finish that book. I mean, I was that far in by that point. He was like, well, could you just skip that scene? Like he just like... And then I finished the book. I watched the movie. It is still one of my favorite movies to this day.
Oh, it's so good. I feel like we need to rewatch soon with Dad on our movie nights.
For sure.
What I find so funny is in every other home, people find like their dad's porn stash. But Maddie found literary porn in her own way. How dare Dad have a book with a sex scene in it? Dad.
That book is actually like has way more in it than the film does. The film's only rated PG-13.
Really?
Yeah, it was insane.
Oh my gosh.
So while I was doing that, like getting my kicks from watching all the movies and reading all the books, I feel like what Kristen's superpower is that she didn't even need media to escape. So are you gonna
I'm gonna
share about your imagining game?
I'm gonna share. I'm gonna get super vulnerable. I can't wait to see what you guys diagnose me with in the comments.
It's just gonna be some form of neurodivergence, I'm sure.
Probably. So from a young age, I started shaking things and making up stories in my brain. So for instance, me and my sisters would be playing with our action figures, our Star Wars, Star Trek action figures in our Barbie houses, right? And my sisters would be having their players like walk around the house, get into the cars. And I'm just holding my character, shaking the ever-living shit out of her, and mentally just like blocking out the scenes, creating the commentary. And I started realizing my sisters were like, will you put your character down? And I'm like, no, this is so much better. Like my brain just sees things so much better than this made up shit dollhouse. Yeah, it's wild, guys. So I evolved into being like, screw the fam. I mean, I still played dress up in the fields with my sisters. Okay, I still played traditionally, but my favorite thing to do would be after our hour and a half of homeschool, because let's be real, the amount of education time that's actually spent in a school day is only like an hour and a half.
For sure.
I would go to my room, close the door, and play my imagining game. And we normalized this in my home. I had never met anybody else that did this. That concerned me not at all.
No.
But I would go into my room, sit on my bed, grab a pencil, because the end of pencils has that shiny part by the eraser, and I would shake the pencil, staring into the ether of this shininess. And I would just make up stories from books, movies that I loved, and would design stories. And I just had the best time. My mom said that hours would go by. And I find it so interesting. My parents never made me feel weird.
No.
They weren't like, we should admit her. We should take her somewhere to like get diagnosed with something. They were just like, well, damn, Kristen's got a wild imagination. Good on her. And I would get done and I just felt like elated. Like I had just had the best time of my life. And I will be honest with you. I'm pretty sure I played my imagining game until I was about 14 years old. It was like a lot, and then it became less and less. But it was a way for me to process when I wanted to escape. Not in a book, I also read. But when I wanted to escape, I would just like create fun realities. I had the best romance stories going. The outfits, oh my gosh, the outfits that I designed.
Now looking at it, I'm like, I think it was this super powerful form of meditation and manifestation and escape. But I think that you were like, they talk about in meditation, there's a form of meditation that's like literally leaving the body and like just being like spirit. Right. And I think that's what you were doing. Like, I think you were just like escaping the physical plane and just living out these wild fantasies and you called it your imagining game. And that's what it was. It was just like escaping into your imagination.
I am a very good meditator as an adult. And I think it's because I do know how to sit and be still and in my mind. And I'm not mad about it. I do sometimes when I'm on the phone with somebody and I'm having a hard time concentrating because there's so much going around me and you're supposed to be like listening on the phone. I will still sometimes subconsciously pick up a pen or something that's laying out and I will start shaking it. I think it's a form of focus for me because I just am easily distracted. And so this is like a very strange thing about me. Like when I get very excited, I shake my hands. Like, is it stemming? Probably.
It sounds a lot like stemming, like what they describe. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm probably on the spectrum. There are people in our families who have been diagnosed with autism. And I just wonder if some of that's a part of who I am.
I love it.
Can't really top it.
So I mentioned that I idolized our older brother a lot. He's 3 years older than me. And he is definitely more introverted and spent a lot of time on his own. And he has 3 younger sisters who are all, playing and best friends. And most of the time he just kind of hung out on his own. So anytime he related with me, I just melted into a puddle under his gaze. You know what I mean? Like, I sound so pathetic, but that is the truth. That is how I felt about him. And so I remember being 12 and he calls to me and calls me into his room. So I go in and I am like, what does he want? Like, he never initiates like hanging out with me or anything. Go into his room and he has stuck a safety pin through his cartilage in his ear and pierced his ear. And he's showing me this. He's 15. So I'm looking at, and so on one hand, I just remember feeling completely split within my soul. Like, there's half of Maddie that is just like elated, melting into a puddle, feels like I'm basking in the glow of him telling me this massive secret and sharing his rebellion with me. And I want to like tell him like, that's so cool. Like, do mine. This is awesome. Like, let's be rebellious together. And the other half of me is like, mortified, dying of shame already about the weight of the secret I am now carrying from our parents. And I just like can't cope. Like, I can't cope with the one time he invites me into his circle. It's to like, I don't know, like align me in this like rebellion against our parents. And I was just like, I feel so roped in right now. I don't know what to. So I pathetically fell apart in his room. I'm sure it just like confirmed his bias against me that I was the most annoying little sister in the world. But I was just like, C-Ray, you have to tell Mom right now, please. I don't want to tell on you. And I don't want to betray your trust, but can you please tell Mom so I don't have to, because I just can't live with this secret. He's like rolling his eyes at me like, are you insane? I was like, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I was dealing with when I was 12.
Maddie is known for telling on herself. Like, my parents never had to worry about Maddie being sneaky. Like, if she even thought about being sneaky, she would share the thoughts with the crowd. And I love this because she's just honest. Like, you're never, ever going to get, like, fake with Maddie. It's, like, literally you can see pain on her face when she's trying to hold in her opinion on something. And she's like, something's wrong. And then she'll just say it. And I'm like, there she goes, living her truth. And I love it.
It's really,
but
really
you
hard
didn't tell on yourself when you cut my hair. So we were like, were we playing hair salon?
You were 4 and I was 6, and we had just watched the Disney movie Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. Sonora Webster. And she chops her own hair off in the beginning of that movie. And it's so like inspiring and girl power and cool that she does it. And so
Maddie?
I'm so sorry. I was 6, okay?
So Maddie, in her drama-filled self, is like, oh my gosh, I might not be ready to chop my hair off, but I do have this little mannequin called Kristen, my little shadow.
You're 4.
So she like cut a chunk out of the back of my hair
with like Crayola scissors.
Oh dear God.
So my mom's like, Hey, did you? She was just like, what happened?
No, she didn't find out. I cut this chunk out of the back of your hair.
Found
I hid it behind the dresser.
She found the hair.
found it when they were moving furniture.
And she was like, where did this come from? And I've probably been walking around looking like a literal crazy person for weeks. This is third child just forgotten in the wind. My mom has to give me a bowl cut, a fucking bowl cut. Wow. I look back at pictures and I say, wow, Kristen, I love you. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
I'm sorry.
I am so, for somebody who, this is why I have to have long hair now. I must still have trauma from it. But we laugh about it now because I do look back at pictures and I'm like, I have that haircut because my sister cut a hunk out of my hair.
I'm so sorry.
Do not recommend.
I think when I was 6, I went through like all the rebellion people go through like in their late teens, early 20s. I like got it all out of my system. I was kissing little boys in the neighborhood. I was cutting stuff out of my sister's hair. I was cursing. I was filling my notebook with hate words about all my classmates. Like I just got all of that out of my system when I was in like first grade. And then I became like a massive prude. I just like fully fell into the integrity piece of my personality. Yes. And was like, I will never be fake. I will never lie. I have no poker face. I cannot handle the physical weight on my chest feels like an elephant when I am not being fully transparent. It's a very wacky character trait. I
love it.
Probably also neurodivergent.
I mean, and our parents were sheltering us, and I feel like now people are like, don't shelter your children, but I am not upset about being sheltered. I feel like I had a very childlike childhood. I was safe. I was loved. There was tons of play. There was tons of imagination.
And it really was. I think I lived in a very innocent, wholesome world until I was about 14, and I wouldn't trade it.
Okay, so let's move into season number 2.
This is our YA era. Our young adult era. So Kristen and I both ended up going to actually just like the inner city local high school. We were done being homeschooled. We were ready to get into some extracurriculars. Kristen definitely wanted a more active social life, which we'll get into. And I was like on a fast track to adulthood. Like I turned 14 and I was like, I'm ready to be an adult. And to me, an adult was get married, have kids, college degree, career. Like I was just ready. I was ready to fast track it. I don't know why, and I'm not very proud of it, but that's what was in my brain. So we go to high school, and I'm just gonna break down a couple little things that happened in the first month of my high school career that I think will perfectly illustrate for you the kind of high school career that I had. So I'm in English class, freshman English. My teacher, Mike Novell, who's still my favorite teacher I've ever had. He was brilliant. He was also the basketball coach. And he loved Shakespeare. He loved the classics, and he's just teaching at this inner city high school. And which of us have read Shakespeare? You know what I mean? But he's trying to teach right before he goes into essay writing and teaching us writing. He's trying to teach us just like the basics of like a good thesis statement and sentence diagramming, just like basic sentence structure, right? So he gives us this assignment. We all go home. We come in the next day, and he's passing out papers, and he's like, guys, like, we have so much work to do. Like, no one knew how to diagram a sentence. He's passing back everyone's papers. Like, some people got, like, 1 or 2 points on this, like, 20-point paper, right? Then at the very last, this is so dramatic, but the very last, he comes to hand me my paper, and he goes, "Madam, I bow to you." And he bowed to me in front of the entire class and handed me back my paper. And I had gotten everything right because my mother hammered home sentence diagramming for us when we were homeschooled. So I had a leg up. I'd already been taught this. And so, but in that moment, basking in the glow of the affirmation of this teacher, I like made up my mind then and there that I was going to excel at academics, that I loved this feeling of being a teacher's pet. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, but like I loved standing out to a teacher. I didn't know I was smart at all until I got to high school, and then the grades came out and I had great grades. I was the top 10 in my class, and I didn't know it, but it's like I got that taste, and it was like a drug to me from then on. I'm not proud of it, but it's like it was I think it was literally like how drug addiction works. I don't know. I've never been hooked on drugs, but it's like I got that first hit of having a perfect score, and the affirmation and the validation that gave me, and I could never give it up. So from then on in high school, it was like it was intense. It wasn't like I just need straight A's. It was like I need a 4.0. I absolutely I must be perfect. Academically, I must be perfect. And I'm sure that was super intense for my parents, my siblings, my friends, everyone. But yeah, that that was what started it all.
I feel like from my perspective, it didn't bother me at all. I feel like it was right on trend with you. Like, all of us are looking for a place to be validated, and when you're homeschooled, you don't really have classmates to compete with. Even though you're maybe more of an introvert than me, I think we both are very competitive, and we enjoy having a place to compete. I mean, sometimes you just work harder when it feels like there's a purpose, and you created a purpose in your GPA and knowing that you wanted to get an academic scholarship. And I mean, I went into high school 2 years behind Maddie, so I kind of watched her become an academic, and she's in debate team and she's doing speech, and I go to her like choir performances. She was in jazz choir and she had a solo, and I was like, slay, Maddie, get this. But I was never like, I want to do that, until I think you had one friend like trying out for cheerleading and you just did it. I watched her. I would go to the football games and I would watch her, and I was like, that looks like fun. And at this point, the only experience I ever had in anything like that was we took some ballet when we were young, and then the churches that we attended at one season of our life had like a dance group. I don't know. It's so weird when I think about it now, but there was like I think it was like an old dance teacher who went to our church and would give dance lessons. And sometimes we would do like performances at our church. And I always loved performing. Maddie loved performing. We watched all these musicals with mom and dad. We loved the dramatics. We loved the theatrics. So cheerleading was actually the only thing that we did together in high school. And Maddie didn't do it the whole time, and neither did I, but it was really fun. My freshman year, her junior year, we both did cheer together, and there's pictures of us.
Another thing that happened, I think this helps to just show that our parents had more layers and multitudes than we realized. But when I started, this is before Kristen started school again, I had made this friend in that same class, Mike Novell's English class. I met Ari, and I immediately clicked with her. She dressed really alternative like I did. I came into high school wearing C. Ray, my older brother's clothes, again, because I idolized him. So I looked real alternative. I had the raccoon eyeliner and tons of masculine chunky jewelry and baggy dark clothes, and I was wearing his messenger bag and black nail polish.
The messenger bag season.
Yeah, so I think, and Ari was really alternative. Ari was a skateboarder and an artist and a poet, and she was just really sure of who she was, or felt that way to me, and she was different, and I could tell that she just had a handle on who she was, and it wasn't she was not going to try to go the, traditional track of high school popularity or whatever. And so we clicked right away. I really liked her. We ate lunch every day. We were hanging out. And about 3 weeks into freshman year, we've been hanging out every day. And Ari told me that she liked me, and asked if I wanted to be her girlfriend. So I didn't really know what to say. So I just said, oh, I'll think about it. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I went home and talked to my parents about it. Again, I can't keep a secret. I have no poker face. So I go home, and I was really worried that my parents were going to freak out. But I just said, hey guys, my friend Ari that I told you about today, she kind of asked me out. And my parents were like, well, what'd you say? And I was like, well, I just didn't know what to say. And they were like, well, what would you say if one of your guy friends asked you out? I'd say, well, I'm not allowed to date till I'm 16. And they're like, well, yeah, you could say that. But if you were 16, would you want to date her? And I was like, well, no, I don't think I'm really interested in girls. And they were like, well, just tell her that. Just be honest. And they were like, it was not a dramatic deal. They did not do any, and it just was like, oh, okay. I think at that point, because I was 14, I did know that I wasn't freaked out, but I still would have been very influenced if my parents had freaked out. And my parents were just like, it's totally okay. You're 14. You don't really want to be in a relationship. You don't really think of her that way. So just tell her that. So the next day I went to school and I was just like, Ari, I don't really think I like girls. And I'm not really allowed to date till I'm 16 anyway, but like I really hope that doesn't affect us being friends. And she was like, nope, totally fine. And we were very close through all of high school. Like she was a great friend to me, and she dated a lot of my friends, and it was great. And I just always really enjoyed her. And she ended up at my bachelorette party 5 years later, in a marriage that did not last, but we'll talk about that later. So anyways, let's fast forward to your freshman year. So I'm a junior. You come in as a freshman.
Yep, I come in as a freshman, but just to let you know where I'm at this season in my life. So I'm seeing my sister thrive in high school. And I really resonated with Mean Girls and Lindsay Lohan because she was homeschooled in like Africa in the movie. And she came into high school and she ruled the school. And I'm preparing for high school and I'm trying to decide which role am I going to play, because I can choose my destiny. I'm starting to realize that I didn't want to just be in my sister's shadow forever. And I made a decision. I was just like, no, I'm going to like run this school. I'm going to become the like, I wanted to be hot. Like, I think it's really obnoxious how important it was to me that I was like, I'm going to be hot. I had felt kind of just ugly and not important for so long that I was like, I don't even care what it is, but in my arena, I'm going to be the shit. And I'm so proud of myself for this because I feel like it could have gone really bad, but it didn't. I went to Northside High School with Maddie. I cheered with her because she was cheering. So I got to meet some girls before school, which really helped. It's very intimidating going from being a homeschooler to an inner city high school. It's a huge high school. So many different people. Like, yeah. It's very overwhelming. And there's a part of me that like wanted to just shut down. But I just was like, I'm going to put my shoulders back, chest up. I'm going to tell people I'm there. I'm going to be weird and I'm going to be admired for it. And I was like, talk about setting intentions. I had all the normal first classes you get, right? One of my classes was a history class, and they were going over the Old Testament. I don't know why this is like something they go over in school, but nobody's paying attention to the teacher, and the teacher's trying to get everybody's attention is like, who knows the 10 Commandments? Could somebody give me one of the 10 Commandments? And I'm just like sitting on my hands like, Kristen, keep your mouth shut. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck that. Like, I am a performer. This is my stage.
Oh my God, I can't believe
so
this happened.
I raised my hand. Like, there are people who have found me in adulthood and they're like, I remember you doing this in this class.
God,
the teacher's like, yes, I raised my hand and I'm like, I know the 10 Commandments. And he said, okay, well, could you give them to us? And I was like, the thing is, like, I only can say them if I do them in a song form because that's how I learned them. And the teacher is looking at me like, okay, are you fucking for real? And he lets me, I stand up like, Kristen, nobody asked you. I stand up.
Of course you did.
Everybody's silent now. Like, everybody who wasn't listening. And I'm like, number one, we just begun. God should be first in your life.
Oh, you
number two. And I do it with hand motions. When I say I will be unforgettable in this school. Now, in some realities, I could have been bullied. In some realities, I could have been shunned for this. It was so good for me to come into my own. So really the coolest thing that happened to me in high school, well, two cool things happened. Number one, I met Kelly, my now husband. And number two, I found my obsession with physical movement and dance. Just like Maddie found her stride in academics, there was a dance program at my school that I did all 4 years, and I moved up to the highest class. Since I was in the 5th dance class, I was also able to teach the younger classes. So half of my high school days, I was either a teacher or I was dancing, and that's really where I just thrived. I love physical movement. I love expressing myself in that way, and it didn't matter if I wasn't getting all A's. I didn't really care about that in my other classes, but it did matter to me in dance, and that when we competed, we were like top ranked, and that like, I don't know, that I got the solos or I was seen, and it just felt like I was a part of a group, and it was so powerful to see what we did. So that has really carried into the rest of my life, and I'm so glad that I found it in this school. I remember I had my first boyfriend in high school, which really, he was only my first boyfriend because he was the first person to ask, and I was so ready to have my romance era.
I don't know. I mean, I dated more than you did in high school. I dated more people, but it was always, I mean, like my longest relationship was like 2 months. I was like in and out of them. I never wanted to get physical. I never wanted it to get serious. I just like, I don't know. It was like trying people on and like quick. And I think I was always like really concerned about being friends with people after I broke up with them. So I never wanted it to get like far enough into dating that like we couldn't just like break up and be like, you know what, I think we're better friends. It's not like I was immune to like popularity or anything like that. It's just that to me, I had seen The Matrix, which was my favorite film of the time, very formative for me. And I had this conversation with our dad where I was like, Dad, I feel like high school is The Matrix. Like, I don't feel like it's real. I don't feel like these social constructs are real. And I feel like the people who are bought too far into high school are like living an illusion. Like, they're not going to be as powerful as they think that they are just because they're like popular in high school or beautiful when they're 17 or whatever. Like, it just all felt like a lie to me. So I think I was always really attracted to people who seemed like quote unquote awake to me, who were like out of the matrix. And so I had all these very different friends. Like, I hung out with athletes, but I also hung out with band kids, but I hung out with choir kids, but I was a cheerleader, but I also was on the yearbook staff, like with a bunch of nerds. So I dated people kind of like all across the board from all of those places. But I don't know. I think it all felt very like temporary and transient to me. Like, high school just didn't feel like a big deal or a big permanent deal. I was like there punching my ticket for my future. And so I just didn't ever, I was like kind of just like riding the surface of it kind of.
It's like Maddie was almost like too cool for the cool kids. So Maddie and she gets me dressed up for a dance. Now, you guys, this is like 2007, 2008. So we have like the ringlet turd curls that people oversprayed. So we go to a dance, and this is my first experience meeting my now husband, but we met on the dance floor. I was dancing with all these guys, all of his friends, and we made eye contact and we danced, and it was basically fireworks after that. I actually, when I say I stalked him, I literally did. I dated his best friend for 1 month so that I could hang out with him more. When I say he had the body, he had the hair. He was quiet and mysterious. I was like, he is my Zac Efron, and he really looked like Zac Efron with that hair. So I'm at prom, and he leans down, and we have our first kiss, and I popped my leg just like they do in Princess Diaries. Wow. I understood the assignment.
Yes, you did.
We're kissing. In my brain, I'm like, fireworks. This is it. You have soulmates. I knew it would happen. So after prom, everybody comes over to our house. It's Maddie's band of misfits. It's my date, and I think like he brought a friend or two. Well, I'm like feeling on cloud nine. My hair still looks good, even though I've, gotten into my scrubs. We're all in our comfy clothes now. And Maddie had an upperclassman who was like a wrestler friend who was there. And he was like, who wants to wrestle me? And I was like, I'll wrestle you, because I think I'm going to look like hot right in front of my date. Like, I'll wrestle you. Boy. Stupid idea. So he's like wrestling me. Obviously, it's not actually a wrestling situation. He's treating me like a toddler. He throws me over his shoulder, so my stomach is like on his shoulder, and he like bounces for some reason. I don't know why he did this, but you just heard a little. It was a fart. I farted into the air in front of a group of friends, including the boy that I'm into, and then there's silence, like crickets. Everybody's like, "The fuck just happened?"
I didn't know what to do.
No, none of us knew what to do. I'm just sitting there like, this is where I die, and then he jumps into the air. He proceeds to jump again. And I go, and I fart again. So I had farted twice. I don't know what to do. Everybody's in shock, but everybody actually starts laughing. Everybody feels secondhand embarrassment. I want to literally be put in the ground, but instead I slide off of his body like a slippery little snake, and I like go upstairs. Like, I don't know if I said I had to go to the bathroom. I might have just been mute, but I went upstairs to my room, put my comforter over my head, and just sat staring into nothingness. Like, I'm sure Kelly has gotten in the car and he's going to some party and he's just gonna like talk shit about me forever, and like I blew it. My asshole blew it, essentially. Okay. And then time has passed. I don't know how much time, because I'm in an alternate reality. I go back down to the basement. All the lights have been turned down. Everybody's watching a movie. They're cuddling with their partner. They're like, everybody's eating snacks. And I still have this comforter on my head, and I just lay on the ground under the comforter and create a little hole for me to watch The Three Amigos, okay? And I'm kind of trying to look through my hole to see, like, is Kelly still here? And I feel somebody get under the comforter with me. Bless his heart. He says, that was really funny. Aww. And I was like, you liked it? I don't even know what I said, but in my brain I was just like, We made out. We made out a lot under that comforter. And let me tell you, I said, maybe it sealed the deal.
I think it did. This is fast forward a few years. I was putting together Kristen's, like, I don't know, bridal shower, I think it was, before she was getting married to Kelly. And I, as one of the games, I had asked him, like, what's the thing you love best about Kristen? Such a cheesy question. But his answer was, she's so unintentionally funny. I remember that to this day. That's, like, the thing he loves most about you is just, like, you just going through life, singing your 10 commandments, farting on demand. I mean, he just thinks you're hilarious.
Well, maybe that's my gift to the world. It's really funny now looking back, but at the time, I always was trying to ride a line. I was like, I need people to take me seriously. And I think the older I've gotten, the more I've just been like, I don't actually need anybody to take me seriously. Like, I know who I am, and my gift to the world sometimes is humor, and I bring humor in a very unique way. So it sealed the deal. Him and I started dating shortly afterwards. Maddie's on her way out of high school. And then we really move into the adulthood section.
New adult?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this gets a little juicy. So up until this time, I think Kristen and I have been very close. We were very close through our childhood, through high school, even though we took kind of different approaches and different paths and kind of ran in different social circles. We were very close. But at this time, I think we were close, but it became strained. Kristen and Kelly were still together, but they went into college, probably partying a little bit, and I was not doing that. Like I said, I was on a fast track to adulthood. I met a guy the summer between high school and my freshman year of college. We met, were engaged, and got married within 11 months. There's a lot of reasons why it happened. I was afraid of, like, fucking up the love life part of my life. I was afraid that if I just had a string of boyfriends and got hyper serious with all of them, but then dated and broke up and dated and broke up, like, I didn't want to be on that hamster wheel. I just wanted to find somebody, commit to them, and then whatever shit came our way, we would just, like, get through it and grow together and get over it. It was very, like, kind of like arranged marriage in my head. It was, like, very Libra of me, like, very logical, balanced. I was, like, not looking for a fairy tale. I was just, like, I mean, if I was looking for a fairy tale, it was definitely, like, an Elizabeth Bennet, Mr. Darcy situation where, like, I find this guy who's, like, quiet and reserved and maybe other people don't really get him, but, like, he opens up to me and I soften him. And that's, like, as far as the fairy tale went in my mind. And I didn't want to have sex before I got married, and I don't know where that decision came from, but I was very legalistic about it. And so I think that escalated our timeline a lot. Like, we were dating, we were serious about each other. I was falling in love more than I'd ever fallen in love when I was 19. And so we just got married. And that was insane.
Kelly and I were for sure having sex at 16 years old. We were obsessed with each other. Like, we were obsessed. And then when Kelly graduated from high school and was going to college, he did stay in town to go to college, but it just felt like a very estranged time. I was very focused on my dance. I was very friend focused. And then I would basically, to hang out with him, I would do what him and his friends were doing, which was partying on the weekends. I was feeling a little bit insecure because he was around all these older people and kind of moving on with his life. And I wasn't even sure. I was like, do I want to go to college? I don't know what I want to do in school. I just was kind of feeling lost, and partying and being around people who weren't really uplifting me a whole bunch. I would say that's probably like one of the darkest times in my life, just feeling just not so great. I had felt so good and like I'd manifested my best life. And then all of a sudden I was like, I don't even know what the next chapter looks like. Like, what happens when you found the guy? Like, they don't tell you in the stories what happens after that. Like, I don't know. I felt like unclear. So Kelly and I are, we're broken up at this point. We were like still kind of like around each other and seeing each other, but I was like, I just don't think this lifestyle is for me. Like, I don't really want to party. I want to kind of go back to my roots. I want to figure out what I want for the future. And he didn't want to break up, and he asked me not to break up with him. And I was just like, I need to do this. So I was there were other guys that were talking to me, and I was kind of just like open to whatever. I was trying to find myself. But I was having a lot of pain in my stomach, and it wasn't going away. So I called mom and dad because I didn't want to look up, WebMD and freak out. And my dad's like, Kristen, WebMD is saying that it's like appendicitis. And I was like, appendicitis? What the fuck is that? And he was like, like your appendix, it's like the same area. And I was like, well, Okay, what does that mean? Well, we should take you to the hospital. No, Dad, no, Dad. I have tickets to see Harry Potter. It's opening night, the midnight showing tonight, Deathly Hallows. I was like, I have friends. Like, this is my life. And he was like, Kristen, like, your appendix could burst. And I was like, it probably won't burst during the movie. So I'm watching Harry Potter in the theater. Like, my face is green. I feel so horrible. I watch it. I go home and I attempt to sleep, cannot sleep. I wake up in the morning and drive painfully to my parents' house. Like, this is like the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced. My dad takes me to the hospital. My appendix is about to burst. Like, the fact that it hasn't is an actual miracle. I'm in so much pain. They're like, emergency surgery. We're going in. I have not like called anybody. None of my friends know this is happening. It's just like my dad and mom are taking care of me. I wake up in the hospital room. Kelly's there, and I'm just like, well, hello.
I feel like this was the universe intervening, though, because you and Kelly had been on the rocks. You had been feeling very lost in your life. And then this big surgery happens, and that kind of gets you and Kelly back together.
No, it does. He like nursed me back to health. I had an apartment and he would come bring me food, and he was
One
just
thing led to
one thing led to another. Let me just tell you. So when you're healing from a surgery, they tell you not to have sex for a while. And like my parents are in the room and they're saying this. I'm like, oh, well, I don't do that. So, and
Mom and Dad still thought you were a virgin at this
no,
point?
they knew I'd had sex, but like they knew Kelly and I were broken up.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So they're like, don't. And we hadn't for a while. And what's so crazy is how Kelly and I, it is a miracle that we did not get pregnant before we did. It is an actual miracle. But the universe decided to get me impregnated. I don't know that I'm pregnant though. Okay. So
Oh, this is so
I am
bizarre.
pregnant. I am pregnant. And it is the day before my 20th birthday. And we're going down to Indianapolis to visit our family. Kelly is with us because he has just been like my boyfriend for ages. And we're just kind of back together like loosely. Like I'm not talking to anybody else. But remember, I'm going through a life transformation and I just had surgery. We go down to Indianapolis and our great-grandmother,
She would have been 90 at this point.
senile, the coolest lady, still wear pearls. I'm so happy about our genes. So I'm like, hi, Grandma. Kelly's next to me. It's good to see you. I give her a hug. And she goes, I like your shirt. That will look really nice when the baby bump comes in. And I'm like,
She knew. I have to tell you, this is so fucking crazy.
it's bizarre. I looked at Kelly and he's
What?
like, trauma. And I'm just like, oh, Grandma, I'm not pregnant. Why would you say that?
I didn't know you were.
I didn't know. I did not know. The next day, it's my birthday, and I was just like, man, I just really feel so sick. And I had taken pregnancy tests before because that's the kind of, living life on the edge that we liked to do back in the days. And I peed on a couple sticks, found out I was pregnant. I told Kelly right away. He held me, and we just cried and cried and cried. And I just remember being like, this is great. This is great because I always wanted to be a mom. And you're my best friend. And I always kind of wanted to have your kids. And even though it felt early, I was just like, I'm older than my parents were when they had their first child. I'm older than his mother was when she had her third child. I was just like, I don't want to be in college. I'm going to use this as an excuse to bow out. Like, this is not what I want to be a mom. I want to be out in the world. I want to do this. We told our parents, lots of tears were had. I think a lot of our parents were reevaluating their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I shook shit up. I shook shit up for Maddie.
For sure. Like, Kristen came to my work, to tell me she was pregnant. And at this point, I had been married for 2 years. And I was in college. I was in art school. And I was going to wait till I was done with school to have kids. I'd worked really hard in high school, got these perfect grades, got this academic scholarship that was only good for 4 years. So I was really focused in college to finish without having any school debt. And so I was just like, I can't do that and have a baby. So I was not trying to have a baby, but I think I always had it in my mind in this kind of very logical vision I had for my life that I'm the oldest granddaughter, I'm the oldest daughter, like I'm going to be the first girl that has a baby. So Kristen comes to my work, she tells me that she's pregnant. And I held her and I cried with her. I was so happy for her. I was obviously also a little scared for her, but I also just was feeling like that was the first crack in my perfect picture logical way of viewing my adulthood. I was like, oh, Like, just because I have a vision in my head of like how things are going to go doesn't mean they're going to go like this. And once Kristen was pregnant, they had a really cute proposal. They got married. She and Kelly got married that December. Kristen had her first baby. And from that moment on, I was racing the clock, trying to get done with school to start trying to have a baby in my first marriage. And I was trying to have a baby. Did not get pregnant. Never got pregnant. And so then that goes on. Robin had her first birthday at my house. We threw her a beautiful little birthday party, and she was the light of my life. She still is. I love her so much. I was in love with her, and I was so proud of Kristen. Kristen had a home birth. She had just decided to have Robin at home at my mom and dad's house, and she delivered that baby unmedicated at home. I was so in awe of Kristen, but our relationship was strained because I was dealing with this, like, I don't want to say envy, but I was like, how come I'm the serious one who does everything in order and lines my life up correctly, and Kristen is beating me at life? Like, I was the one member who was on the fast track to my adult life, and here Kristen is starting her family. She and Kelly live in this beautiful building called Edgewater Arms. This beautiful old historic building. They have this beautiful apartment there. They bring their baby home. They take these beautiful pictures with their baby in the yard. And I'm over here still in college. Like, how did she hit fast forward? Like, how did she get so far ahead of me so quick? And now she's the one taking the 5-year generation pictures with our great grandma. And like, what if my great grandma passes away before I have a baby? And so I was like actively at that point trying to finish school, trying to get pregnant, could not get pregnant, and then Kristen got pregnant again.
Oh, surprise, shorty.
So Kristen is pregnant with baby number 2, and I think that really was I had graduated from college. I had been trying to get pregnant for a year. Kristen and Kelly had bought their first home. I went to Kristen's second birth. She asked me to come, and I watched her have another home birth and be this amazing goddess birthing woman. And I was just like devastated. I cannot explain to you the amount of devastation I felt and fear that I was never going to be able to have a baby. And on top of that, I was just grossly disconnected from my spouse. We had definitely grown apart. I was beginning to realize we'd never actually gotten that close, and that I kind of had my own life built up. I was very busy in college, and I was working full time, and we didn't really relate that much. On the weekends, I went and did my thing. He went and did his thing, and when we were together, we were trying to get pregnant, and we weren't getting pregnant. And we weren't really talking about the fact that we were not getting pregnant. And when I finally did say, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to take it if we can't have a baby, he was like, I don't see what the big deal is. So at that point, my life started to unravel. And I think it was the best thing that could have ever happened. Kristen started a career soon after she had her second baby, and I started watching her kids. So that I loved my niece and nephew. I wanted to be in their lives, and I was ready for that phase of my life, but I just wasn't getting pregnant, and my life was really imploding in that first marriage. So at that point, Kristen and I got very close again because I got a separation. I started unraveling that relationship in as tender and as loving and as kind a way as I could. We started uncoupling, and I actually moved in to the beautiful building that Kristen and Kelly had lived in. They had since bought their first home, but I had dreamed of that place ever since Kristen lived there, and they had an opening. And so I moved into that apartment by myself, and at 24, I was basically starting over. And that was when I first started unraveling this like way I treated life like a vending machine, where I just thought if I put in my best effort and my high achievement, that the world would just spit out this perfect little dream life I had planned for me. I mean, I had the house in the country with the picket fence and the husband and the free college and the full-time job, and I had everything that I thought I wanted, but luckily the universe just knew, like, I couldn't get pregnant, and it just opened my eyes. It just helped me realize, like, everyone's on different paths and there is no quote unquote right way to do life. And so I was done playing that game. I was done trying to manipulate and control everything in my life to get the outcomes that I wanted. And I wasn't going to drag someone through it with me. That was one of the things that was really healing for me as I did get divorced, is to understand that it wasn't actually going to be kindness to drag my ex-husband through that with me, trying to treat life like a vending machine. So we stopped, and I think he was really hurt at first, but we found a lot of healing together as we kind of dismantled why we had gotten married and recognized that our relationship did not have a lot of foundation, and that we really weren't seeking the same things in life. And so we separated. I don't want to paint it like it was rosy. It was hard, and it was a little bit messy, and there was hurt on both sides. But we did, I think, as well as two 23-year-olds can, uncouple. And I like now to look back on it as like it was a healthy college relationship that just probably shouldn't have been a marriage. Mm-hmm. But it was, and we uncoupled, and then I moved into the building I now own. But that is another story.
So Maddie, as she mentioned, I ended up having a second child shortly after Robin. They're very close in age, just under 2 years. Kelly was full-time in school. I had decided to not continue school because I wasn't really even sure what I was doing there. I honestly can't even remember if I had a major or what it was. Like, it might have been speech therapy. I just was like, this just doesn't feel right now, and it's expensive. I worked a little bit, but mostly I was a stay-at-home mom, and we lived on like $13,000 a year. Don't recommend, but also anything is possible. I was really blissed out being a mom to this little baby. We went for hour-long walks every day in my now neighborhood. I was manifesting living in the neighborhood that I am now in, and I worked out a lot. I had like a six-pack after having a baby. I think there was a part of me that was like, just because I'm 20 and having a baby doesn't mean, you know, my life is over, because I was just telling the story I wanted, right? Like, a lot of people are like, you got pregnant, your life's over. And I was like, nah, son, watch how I flip this on its head and make this into a great thing. It could have been unhealthy. Maybe I was trying to prove something. I probably was.
Well, you were 20.
But I was 20, and all my friends are out partying and doing all these things. And I'm just like, I'm ready to adult and be a mom, and I want to still look hot, and I still am obsessed with my now husband. I was 5 months pregnant when we got married, and like, I was just like, that's fine. It's fine that it's not what I thought it was going to be. I'm happy. And then Kelly's finishing up school. I get pregnant again, give birth again, another home birth. So fun, having a little boy and a little girl. But we were poor. We were so poor. And I think sometimes you have to be poor to become as motivated as you are to do the kind of shit that I ended up doing. But I was so poor that when there was an opportunity presented to me to be an entrepreneur where you create your own hours and build your own business selling cosmetics with Mary Kay, I was like, why not? I'll give it a go. I've got a 3-week-old baby and a 2-year-old, and I'm exhausted, and my nipples are bleeding and oozing milk, and I'm just like, I'm ready to make some fucking money. I'm ready to build something. And I did. I built an empire. And Maddie was kind of intentionally breaking her life apart, and I was building something, and we just found each other. I think she would come over and be my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah, I'm going to support you. I'm going to support you to build this. I think our relationship blossomed from there, especially to where it is now, because there's so many ways that I lean on you now and I learn from you now. And there's none of my like big sister ego in the way. I think that's why people sometimes wonder if you're the older sister.
Well, it just goes to show, like, Maddie thinks that I was ahead, but, like, I never felt ahead of you. I never felt that way, and I never saw it as a race. I felt like my life was so different. It was my confidence-building era. I was in this career for 8 years. I drove a pink Cadillac for 4 years. Maddie worked for me for part of it. I had my mom. I had nannies. I had assistants. I had tons of customers all over the city. I had team members, and you know what? It was so fun, and it was such a wild ride, and I was getting to travel and speak in front of groups, and it was so great until it was time for me to move on to something else. And then I realized how much of my ego was wrapped up in my income and in my status in this company, that it felt like a divorce and a death when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I had now 3 children, and my husband is pursuing becoming a firefighter. He wants to live his dream. We're both just kind of tearing things down. And in COVID, I basically went through, other than leaving my husband, I went through a lot of what Maddie went through when she was breaking things down. I went through a minimalistic phase, and I just simplified. I
sold your home, you quit your job.
sold my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a pixie cut. Oh my God. And I was just like, okay, that was fun. That was great. But on to the next thing. Meanwhile, Maddie.
I was recovering from being an achiever. So I moved to the special building that Kristen and Kelly had lived in. And when I arrived at the beautiful building to look at the apartment that was available, I was expecting to meet the owner of the building, who was a friend of our dad's. But he wasn't there. This guy comes out in these like long striped house pants, pajama pants. He had this beautiful full beard, and he had these spectacles on, and he had a book under his arm, and he was smoking a pipe.
Maddie, you're like, say less. So woo.
His aura was so strong. So I'm walking in front of him. He's walking behind me down the hall to this unit that I was going to look at, this apartment. And I was telling him in the hallway, I was like, my sister used to live here. I really, really love this building. I hope it works out. And he's like, oh yeah, I think I maybe remember her. And I was like, okay. So we walk into the apartment, and I mean, I've just walked in the door, and I said, I'll take it. And he like walks around me, and he chuckles, and he's like, are you sure you don't want to like see the bathroom and the kitchen first? I was like, no, trust me. I feel very confident. I'm going to take it. That was our meet cute.
It was the deep voice.
And so we found out we were going to be neighbors. And so a couple weeks in, he came down and knocked on my door. And I was like, hey. He said, hi, do you play chess? And I was like, of course I do. This is me, big talk. I'd played chess maybe like 3 times in my life.
Oh my God.
But I was like, yeah. He invited me to come down to his apartment, which was gorgeous. I had never seen a man's apartment so put together. It was full of books and dark armchairs, maps, and it was painted this like almost black green color, and the whole thing smelled like pipe tobacco, and he made dinner, he cooked. I was just like, who is this like amazing man? Turns out I'm 4 years older than Mitch. Mitch was 20 when I met him. He just gave off old man vibes in the best way. He really slowed me down and tempered me, and I fell madly, desperately in love with him. I mean, desperately, hopelessly in love with him. I could not, it would be so cheesy and maybe unfair for me to try to explain the contrast in the relationship I had been in that I thought was good and healthy versus the connection that I felt with Mitch, and how much I felt like my soul had come home when I met him. Like,
my God.
I just thought he was like, I thought I would never find something that felt as familiar and homey to me as our family of origin.
Yeah.
And I met Mitch, and I thought, nothing has ever felt as right to me as this. And I just trusted his goodness so implicitly. Like, he radiated goodness.
And he still does. Like,
oh my God.
I feel like ever since you met Mitch and you guys started a relationship, I feel like as your sister and best friend, I felt relief, and I just feel like I'll never have to worry about you because Mitch is there. It is a love story for the ages. I hope you put it in a book someday.
Oh, I hope we do too. Well, and the sweetest part is that obviously as we were falling in love, it was like, well, why are we going to pay 2 rents in this building? So I moved in with him, decided to get married. And of course, we wanted to get married here. So we got married in the yard. But we decided to leave for a couple years, and we got a little house, and we tried for a baby and got pregnant right away, first time. That was our son. And so he was born, and then
I was at that birth,
Yes,
which is
poor
the reason
Kristen.
why 10 months later I had my third, because I watched Maddie and I said, yeah, I'm doing that again.
It was a fun experience.
having seen Kristen deliver her son, I felt really confident, even though things didn't go exactly textbook in my first birth. I felt very confident that I could give birth unmedicated. I wanted a home birth. I actually ended up transferring to the hospital for that first birth I was still able to deliver naturally and unmedicated, but they just needed to monitor some things because it's technical. But my waters basically had just been broken too long. But anyways, he was fine. He was healthy.
Yeah.
The birth was beautiful. And I mean, I don't think the birth was beautiful for Kristen because I threw up on her shoes.
The hardest night of my life. It was harder than my birth. I'm lifting her. I'm giving her massages in the shower, fully clothed, while she's buck naked on some like ball, and she's just like, push harder, and I'm like, oh, I hurt everywhere.
I'm one of those people that like when I'm in pain, I just need support. So she was supporting me.
I'll be her for you.
When my son was about a year old, I got pregnant again, right when we wanted to. With my daughter, and then we did have a beautiful home birth with her, and I think Kristen, it was a redemption for you because I wasn't as demanding in that birth.
Yeah, that birth was fine.
Totally fine.
And then at that point, Mitch and I put everything we had together, and we bought the building that we met in and that we got married in, and that is where we live now and where we're raising our babies. And that part really does feel like a fairy tale. Like, I feel so at peace and so at home with where we live, with this home, and with each other, where we met, where we got married. And
that next season is really where Maddie and I started really, really getting close. Almost like our poor husbands probably feel like we're like too close. We're like always together. But we're raising little children together. I have left a career that was awesome. Maddie has left careers that were awesome. And we're just like not working. I'm starting to read a lot because I have time in my life now that I'm not so career obsessed. We're ready to create. Like, we're both naturally such creative people, but we just had been so busy and so absorbed in other things that now all of a sudden we had some space. Like, I don't think we had any kids in diapers.
Well, I'd gone through like a grief spell too. I was trying to have a third baby, and you know, I'd had such good luck with my first two, got pregnant right away, had very easy textbook pregnancies and deliveries and healthy babies. I went through 2 years of just having miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. Again, like coming back to this, like we don't control our lives. Like we don't have a script. Thank God. Thank God life is not a script, and that unexpected things happen. And then at the end of this 2-year journey, I remember sitting at your house, Kristen, I think, and just saying, like, I think I'm ready to let this go. Like, I think I followed this path as far as I can. I've done all of the things that I'm willing to do to make this happen, and it's not happening, and that's okay. Like, I think I just want to be with the babies I have, and I can't keep doing this. And I had this huge amount of peace and just like weight lifted off my shoulders. And then I felt like I was in a new season, and that's when it was like, I need to create again. And that's when we started making content together.
Yeah, book talk for therapy. And honestly, probably wouldn't have worked out the way it did if we did it at any other time. It was truly divine timing. And it's been really, really good to be kind of in a workspace, but with the perfect coworker. It's been so nice to have purpose behind my time again, because as a stay-at-home mom, I did kind of start to flounder there for a while. Like, it was healing until I was like, okay, now what? And I actually ended up getting a job working for Maddie's husband right when we were starting our book talk. But I thought book talk was just going to be this fun thing we did for fun. I mean, I feel bad now because, not bad, but I'm now leaving that job because this became the thing. But it had no pressure in the beginning. Maddie and I never put pressure on this, that it had to grow. We had to make money. No. We needed a large following. Like, we were like, this is straight for our sister relationship joy, an excuse to get together, an excuse to create because we love it so much. So now I feel like when my son will ask me, Mom, what's your dream job? What would you like to do? I'm doing it. I'm living it. I'm dreaming it right now. This is just like the perfect peak. You know, and I know there's a lot more of the journey to go, but I feel like we're in a peak season, and I'm really, really happy. I'm really happy.
Our relationship right now has gone through so many iterations throughout the years, and I think I agree with you. Like, it could never have happened at any other time. Like, we both had to make our like philandering. We would both agree that the new adult era is the most intense.
Yeah.
I feel like we're just like being little girls again. This is the most childlike I have gotten to be since being a child because I became an adult so quickly. And it feels really good to have financial freedom. It feels really good to have time to play and read. And I feel like there's so much good shit up ahead.
I also just think it's a really fun time for neuroplasticity for Kristen and I, because it's like,
yes.
I don't know what this like illusion we both were under that we needed to have things figured out and solved and rigid and set by the time we were 25. But
Yeah,
boy,
what was
what
that?
a boring life
What?
that would have been.
Why are we such a
And
cheaters?
now we're just like, well, let's just try something we've never tried before, like podcasting. We can figure out everything there is to know about audio mixing. No big deal.
Oh my gosh. I hope that this was an entertaining time for you guys. And even if it wasn't, I'm just glad that this exists so that you and I can go back someday when we're like 50 years old.
Mems.
Yeah. We can just be like, let's just go have a good little chuckle.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And we will see you in the next episode.
Bye for now.